Hey all, how's it going? It's been a hot minute. Bitcoin and crypto in general, the space has been described as a bit boring right now, and I don't think that's necessarily true, but I can understand why people are kind of thinking that. So today what we were thinking is we'll do a bit of a dive into some of the stories, some of the stuff that's going on in the background that you might not have heard about, some stuff that you can kind of do a little bit of further reading to kind of make a bit of an informed decision about what is going on right now. All the stories or the articles that we look at today will be referenced and linked below, so be sure to check them out. Keep me honest, check my sources. But without further ado, we're going to look into Bitcoin. The first story that we wanted to cover was Bitcoin. Bitcoin's down 11% from the halving, and a lot of people have been questioning why this is. Previously, every single halving has corresponded with essentially a really solid, consistent build up in price action, in growth, the number of people getting involved in Bitcoin, the sizes of transactions, the price as well. So we've kind of seen a bit of a reversal in this, and there's a couple of reasons that this article kind of goes into as to why that's going on. I won't cover off all of them in detail. You've got to read the article for that. But the first kind of major one is that we've had this extended kind of slow bull run, like this bull waddle. I don't know if that's a term or not. In the lead up to it, we had the ETF news. Then we had a lot of kind of interest in Bitcoin in relation to kind of the halving, kind of people expecting things to happen. And when people expect things to happen, they kind of act on it beforehand. They want to get in before the halving. So we had this really big lead up, this build up to the halving, and then it's kind of not really gone anywhere. And one of the main theories that this article puts forward is that a lot of the momentum, a lot of the energy was actually used pre-halving. And now a lot of people have invested all that time, have invested all that money, and are kind of waiting for something to happen. So everyone's kind of like holding fire. No one wants to be the first. No one wants to jump in. So there's a lot of players, a lot of people on the sidelines, just holding back for the time being, waiting for somebody else to go. The second kind of point that this article raises is talking a little bit about the cost of living. This is a really big thing that if you compare into 2020/2021 or 2016/2017, the pressures on retail have never been greater. And that's really interesting to say, right? Pressures on retail have never been greater than we had a global pandemic. What? Anyway, so it's a really, really interesting thing about how there's not that retail drive or people as willing to invest in it, and also people being a lot more conservative, a bit more waiting to see other people go first, so to speak. The second story that we wanted to cover off today was around Ethereum and a lot of uncertainty in Ethereum. And this uncertainty is coming from a very, very different place. Much like Bitcoin, Ethereum has its own ecosystem of people involved with it who are ETH maxis, and it's been ticking along. But even within these groups, there's been a lot of uncertainty. The first one being that there's been large amount of whale movement, but it's not really resulted in anything. It's not really obvious what they're doing. And the amount of Ethereum being held by centralized exchanges is being pretty consistently decreasing. It's been going down quite a lot. But it also has been flowing out of staking services. People are thinking that some are running nodes with it, but it's not really obvious. There's no real clear-cut reason why this is happening. So people are kind of questioning, what's going on? These people aren't selling it, but they're not buying it, but they're also not doing anything with it. And the second one, and this kind of really segues nicely into the third story that we're going to talk about after this, and that is the SEC. I'm sick of hearing about them. I'm sure you're sick of listening to me talk about them, but they are like a dog with a bone. They've been absolutely rabid. Recently, they've gone after Coinbase and now Robinhood, two very large players who've traditionally been flag bearers for the regulate crypto community. So even these people are essentially been given Wells notices. What a Wells notice is, for those who don't understand it, is an intention to sue. The SEC has to turn around and say, hey, we're going to sue you. We're not suing you now, but we're going to sue you later. And they're kind of not legally binding, but they're kind of an indicator that some more stuff's kind of happening. So that's kind of created a little bit of uncertainty as well, given that these people are trying to do the right thing. And one of the reasons why it's created this uncertainty with Ethereum is, first and foremost, it's not the same as Bitcoin. Michael Saylor, this is the third article that we wanted to cover off. Michael Saylor did a really, really interesting kind of write-up, kind of a little bit of an interview as well that went along with it, about how he thinks Ethereum is going to be a security. The reason why people would say Ethereum's a security is first and foremost because the SEC has made it clear that they want Bitcoin to be treated as a security, but this is a stepping stone towards that. They can't take on the biggest guy in the town first, they take on the second biggest guy, and that's Ethereum. They clearly think that they can win here, so they're going to try and do Ethereum and use that as precedent to go after Bitcoin. Going after Ethereum makes a lot of sense strategically. It's big enough to make it worthwhile. Most of the smaller chains, they'll probably just settle. There isn't going to be much of a fight. It isn't really going to do what the SEC wants it to do. But with Ethereum, well, there's also a team behind it. Well, it is decentralized, but it was developed by a centralized organization, a research house called Consensus. They're the guys who kind of went in, figured out how all this stuff was going to work, pushed it out, and kind of gave it to the community. So they're going to probably argue that because a centralized person was involved, they can go talk to the people who did do the first code commits on GitHub for Ethereum. It's going to be interesting to see what they do there. I don't really think they have too much of a leg to stand on, but while there is this uncertainty, it's been driving down people's willingness to invest, people's willingness to try things, to be a bit risky. Bitcoin's got its own problems, Ethereum's got its own problems, and whichever one can kind of overcome them is probably home free because it won't affect the other one's problems. If Ethereum clears all the legal headaches and there's a lot of investment into it, there's a lot of interest in the space, probably a little bit will flow over to Bitcoin, but the issues we're seeing with Bitcoin aren't necessarily correlated with that. It would be a reactionary one. They'll see the price rise with Ethereum, that potentially could lead to a price rise with Bitcoin. That might kick off something within Bitcoin. But likewise, if we see this price rise with Bitcoin, if we see people commit because they think it's going to rise in value, so they invest, and then the cycle continues, people see it rising in value, they buy, rises in value more, well, that's not actually going to do anything to Ethereum's problems at the moment, which is this uncertainty with large institutional players, knowing that the SEC, a government organization, is there breathing down their necks if they do anything. It's a really, really interesting time, and I think it's almost putting the two, not head to head, but facing their own unique challenges, and it'll be really interesting to see which one overtakes it. So that's all for today. Thank you again for tuning in. Hopefully there won't be as big a break between this one and the next one, but do appreciate you guys sticking around, and till next time. See you all.